why don't we have an organization that can throw up a couple pictures and put some awesome stuff on there, and how much money comes from tag sales or whatnot, and what that goes to, or all the meat, like the metric ton of meat that's provided through people hunting wild game, and actually how many plates on dinner tables that's providing. There's just great info. I mean, we have science, we have data, we have all of that. Why aren't we trying to throw that into the mix to the non-hunting public, to get a few of them to either say, I've never seen that perspective before. Where do I find out more about that? Wow, you can eat bear meat? I didn't know that.
These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. SIG is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com. You have such a distinguished name. Do you think of your name as distinguished?
Distinguished? No, I wouldn't use that word. I would say it's, even though it kind of means the same thing, I just wouldn't use distinguished because that sounds better. I would say it's definitely different. I've thought about changing it to Whitman because everybody just says Whitman.
Yeah.
If they don't know me.
Right.
I get letters all the time, Charles Whitman, because Whitwam is not common at all. I don't know. I mean, I've done a little research. It used to be Whittam. Okay. When people move to the United States or Canada or whatever, they would like take a letter out of their name.
Right.
For strange reasons. But it was Whittam, W-H-I-T, W-H-A-M, and now it's W-H-I-T, W-A-M. And I guess pronounced Whitwam. So yeah.
It's a cool name. It sounds like you should be like managing a school for mutants or something like that.
I like that. I'm cool with that, actually. Yeah. French Canadian. My family moved from England in that area, but they went to Canada, and then I guess, and from obviously some people from France too. But I don't know where it changed. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but
yeah. That French influence in New England is much more prevalent than I ever understood. A lot of the signs are French. There's sort of an expectation that if you live there, that you can understand some of that stuff. A lot of, French accents and French speaking people. And it makes sense with their proximity to Quebec. But it's just not something that I'd really thought about. And I was just out there a few weeks ago for some guide training and for a hunt that we were filming. And there's just French speaking people everywhere. And
you were in Quebec?
I wasn't in Quebec. I was in New England. I was in New Hampshire and Maine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely a whole different world out there. And obviously they're so close to Canada, so close to the border. It really does kind of sort of the same thing. I mean, it's the same people. It's not like you're going to a different country when you're that close.
Totally.
And that's where I grew up. I grew up where I could snowmobile to Canada.
Yeah.
Across Lake Erie. So a little different exactly where I grew up. There's a bit more distinction between the two countries, but certainly, yeah, Maine. I've spent some time in Caribou, Maine.
Mm-hmm.
It's, hey, my friend over in Canada,
Yeah.
or what, they just live right next door to each other, literally.
Sure.
And share, they take part in a lot of the same activities and whatnot. So it's much closer.
I was on a muzzleloader hunt in Maine a couple years ago now, which was weird. It's something that, I don't know what I'm doing with the muzzleloader, and that style of hunting is very different to me. Out west, I'm used to looking at Onyx a lot to tell where I am, or looking at base map or go hunt, whatever. I use all of them, but I don't want to accidentally walk onto somebody's private property. Out there, you can hunt on private property without permission, as long as it's not posted. And that's really bizarre. But the reason that I was looking at my map all the time when I was in Maine was to make sure that I didn't accidentally walk into Canada.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Actually, in a different country.
Yeah, I could. You're like 20 yards away from, not having the correct hunting license.
Right. See, we had a giant lake separating us, so we did. Well, oh man, we did a lot of fishing and ice fishing out there, and you really had to pay attention to what country you were in.
Sure.
For sure. So we'd just buy, a Canadian fishing license, didn't have to worry about it. But there were certainly times if you're drifting or whatnot, and you'd have to, because they'll get you, you'd have to make sure everyone on the boat can fish in Canada. Because you're like, I don't know where we are. We might be in Canada. We might not be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's my type of crime. I would want to slip into Canada and then run back to America and be like, ha ha ha.
My kid caught his first fish in Canada. Actually, I think when he was 4, we were out ice fishing, and the whole lake wasn't frozen. It generally doesn't freeze over. The entire Lake Erie doesn't freeze over anymore, but all the bays and everything do. So we'll kind of drift through ice flows with a boat, which is a time to experience, and wait for it to, kind of break open a little bit and head on over to this bay or whatever. And it's just so much fun. It's honestly, I don't think people understand. It's kind of like, oh, you just think about ice fishing. You're like, oh, you're just sitting over a hole. Sometimes that's all it is, but it can also be the adventure getting there.
Yeah.
And everything. It's the same thing with hunting. If somebody doesn't hunt and they just see a picture of you holding something, they don't know what went into that, and an adventure that might have been had or not had or whatever, just the whole 9 yards. But ice fishing is a lot of fun.
It sure can be. It can be real miserable too. Yeah. But most of the time it's not. It's really fun, and it's a lot more social than most fishing types, I would say, because you're static. And I don't know, you can bring some amenities out there with you that you normally can't when you're fishing.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I had a really interesting ice fishing trip on Fort Peck in eastern Montana. We were out there for a week, and it was, anywhere between 0 and 20 below, and, windy a lot of times, windy enough that it would blow my snowmobile across the ice, and, just craziness. Some people had died the week before. They'd gotten out to a point where the river was flowing and it had eroded the ice from the bottom, and they went through in a side by side. And there's a risk factor there, but I think ice fishing is inherently very safe. I would presume that it's safer than softwater fishing. But I was ice fishing another time in Southwest Montana, and it was miserably cold. It was closer to 40 below zero. And I walked past a guy on the way out to where I wanted to fish, and he was just sitting on a bucket, and his hole had completely froze around his line. He's just sitting there with his back to the wind, cranking across the ice there. So cold. And I said, "Sir, are you doing all right?" And he looked up, an old man, weathered face, and he goes, "I hate my wife." I was like, oh my God. So
a lot.
He wasn't even fishing, man. He was out there because that was better than being home. It's like, holy buckets, choose wisely.
Yeah, he must hate her a lot for sure. Wow. That's a crazy thing to say. That's a crazy thing to run into.
Oh man.
I mean, it's comedy, not for him.
Yeah. Well, wow. If he can't laugh about it.
You run into people like that ice fishing.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. There's guys with their dark houses, sheds, whatever. And if it's nice out, you're sitting on a bucket, or maybe you're spearing, which is so cool when the lake is clear and you can see
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Wow. How much fun is that? Got your tip ups for pike or maybe occasional walleye or something. I mean, when it's
It's
going,
fun
wow.
stuff, man. Yeah.
Oh man.
We
Yeah.
use
Super
these
fun.
little jaw jacker things out here in Oregon, and we can run 5 lines on a 2 rod permit. So the most rods you can ever fish in Oregon is 2, but ice fishing, if you have 2 rod endorsement, you can fish 5 rods. Some funky math there, but that's how it goes. So these jaw jackers are basically a fish trap that has your rod preloaded, and as soon as a fish bites it and the rod's allowed to straighten, sets the hook.
Right.
And it makes kind of a clattering noise because they're made out of some junky Chinese plastic. But if you get a bunch of adults out on the ice, drinking a couple beers, and then you hear jaw jackers going off, and it's a big scramble of a herd of people to get out across the slick surface to get to that fish. That's just good, clean fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sliding in.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun to think about. I haven't done it in a while, but every time people bring up Michigan, Canada, or whatever, I start thinking it's so much fun. It really is.
Well, you don't actually run a school for mutants. So how do you spend your time these days?
These days, well, recently, I've been spending almost all of my time building this nonprofit Howl for Wildlife.
Yeah.
I've been working on it for over a year now, but I launched it in January. Other than that, I do some guiding over the past, whenever it is that COVID started, January 2020. I did a lot of guiding from then until this past year because I had nothing else to do. And before that, I guess for 5 years or whatnot, I guided off and on when I have time. My normal job is seasonal, so I'll generally have 5 or 6 months off a year anyway.
Yeah.
Where I hunt or guide or whatnot. It works out great for Howl for Wildlife because bill season, which is generally January through, I don't know, maybe now it's kind of starting to slow down. I have that time off. So I can put a lot of time into Howl for Wildlife.
Nice.
And not have to worry about my other job. But my other job is literally starting. It had just started this past weekend. And now it's basically nonstop until the end of October.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the other job?
It's called Climb On. We do events, like corporate events, a lot of city events, but it's rock climbing and zip lining, and it's interactives for kids and adults.
Some trust building components to that, probably.
A little bit. Yes, actually, yes.
Teamwork.
To me, it doesn't seem like it, but it is to some of the events that we do, some of the corporate events we do. Because I guess if it's something you've never done before, it is a scary thing to do, even though our stuff is, super safe. It's meant for everybody.
Yeah. So. People almost never die during your events.
No, nobody's ever died. Or even gotten hurt. Honestly, that's
good. That's a good track record.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been doing that since 2006 is when I bought the company.
Well, we met at Hunt Expo. And I was aware of Howl before that, but I didn't really know what it was. And when I came across your name, I've told you this before, I thought, oh man, here's another like anti-hunting hippie organization.
Yeah.
Like, great, just what we need. And it looked like you're gaining steam. And then I saw the content a little bit and I was like, wait, this isn't at all what I thought. So tell me a little bit more about what Howl is, where it started, and where we're at now.
So where it started is still where it's at right now. I have certainly some future plans on where this is going to go. And I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of the name Howl for Wildlife and not necessarily looking like a hunting organization and maybe even an anti-hunting organization. It's to kind of throw people off, but it's also the direction that we want to go because we really want to get the non-hunting public involved in what it is that we're doing. And I don't know what you'd call it. If it's like kind of a play on words or whatnot. I mean, it's definitely interesting using wolves. Believe me, I've heard I've heard it from everybody. Like, why are you guys using pictures of wolves? I'm like, well, why can't I? Like if you're a hunter, you can't do that. Maybe that's one of the problems,
Yeah.
why have we let the other side co-opt that image or whatnot, and what's wrong with saying we save wildlife or we protect wildlife? Because I really think that we do through management of the species. I really believe that. So even though we kill animals, yes, we do. But I also think we protect animals by keeping them in balance. I think that's humans. One of being a human being. It's one of our roles that we can do because we have intellect, and we can collect data and all that good stuff. Sometimes it doesn't go right, but we can correct things. We're not just based on instinct. So
it's a recipe. Like,
yeah,
if you put too much of something in, you can balance that by adding more of other ingredients, or, and I think the idea of balance in wildlife management leads people to thinking that it's like this terrarium where if you get everything just right, then it's a perpetual motion machine and it can function just like that forever. And that's not at all the case. Like, it's constantly changing and we need to change with it. And that's by, staying on our toes and continuing to collect that data, making decisions, and then adjusting after we can see the effects of those decisions. But I interrupted you and I apologize for that.
No, I mean, you're right on. I was just gonna, what Howl for Wildlife is it's a platform where it's a platform to reach decision makers, essentially. So when there's a bill or a petition or an issue, there's always decision makers involved, and those are the people who are going to be making the decisions surrounding this bill. And so what we've done is we've made it really easy for you to be able to actually reach those decision makers and reach all of them, not just one of them, but reach all of them on a personal basis, not through a form letter, not through, kind of a cookie cutter letter, and not through another organization. It's your email to them. And if there's 86 decision makers, you're sending a different email to every single one of them. They're not CC'd on the same email or anything. And we have it set up where they're also received. You can edit, you can add whatever email you want. So let's just go back. Like, first of all, if there's an issue and you've ever said, all right, well, who do I reach? And then maybe you can find who you reach, but you just see a list of emails. It's going to take time, and people just don't do things that take time. That's just the reality of the situation. So we've set it up so when you do want to take action and you click, reach these decision makers, add your howl is how we say it, but it's, you're reaching all these decision makers. Your voice, your email is going to each one of those people. And as those bills change, decision makers change, and that gets updated as well. And you can send whatever email you want to them. So we've made it really easy to contact the right people without you having to do that research. B, if you haven't known what to write, we have a ton of pre-drafted emails that randomize, that go to those decision makers. So I don't want it to sound like we're doing anything for you. We're just accomplishing, if you don't have time to, you can read the email, you agree with it or not. Right. If you agree with it, you can send that email. Yeah. And then when the next person comes, they actually see another email that's set up. And so they're sending out. So then the decision makers are seeing a ton of different information, different emails. It's harder for them to filter it. So it forces them to actually read each one of them. And as well, the subject lines, when necessary, it depends on what kind of a bill it is or whatever, the subject lines are randomized as well. Do you understand what I'm saying with that?
No, totally. And I've participated in this. So I know from my perspective what the process is like. And if there's some kind of issue, like I can't remember which one I got involved in. I think it might have been Hunter Orange in Colorado or something like that. Doesn't matter. So I log on to Howl. I read about the issue. I've done my own research. I understand what the problem is. The problem is that in order to prevent hunters from accidentally shooting each other, the state is proposing that everybody wear hunter orange all the time, including archery hunters. Like, that's dumb. I don't think I really need the government to tell me what color to wear. I'm not into that. Do I archery hunt in Colorado? No. Might I someday? Maybe. But this is still something that I feel strongly about. So I want to get involved. How do I do that? Go to Howl, put my name in, and I read this email that's really well written, and I agree with everything, and I freaking send that thing, and it goes out to every single person who's going to be making a decision about this subject. And the whole process for me took minutes, whereas before that would have taken me hours, maybe half a day to figure out everybody that needed to get that information, and then to write the stuff up myself and then sound intelligent. That's a really difficult thing. I don't have half a day to apply to every single thing that comes up against wildlife or hunting throughout the country. I just don't have that. So I think it's incredibly smart, forward thinking, and powerful what you're doing. And you've seen positive results from this already, and you're just getting started.
A lot of positive results. Yeah. So back to those emails also, people are getting, it doesn't happen every time, but people are getting responses back from legislators that also aren't canned responses. They are, something to the effect of, wow, I really appreciate your stance on this issue. Here's my stance on this issue. Here's what I believe about this bill. Here's my stance on it. So it's really relevant to what you just wrote in.
Yeah.
And that, to my knowledge, people have told me, they're like, we've never heard back before whenever we filled out, some of the like just classic kind of form letters. We haven't heard back before from the legislators. Maybe an auto reply or something,
right?
But nothing that's actually personal. And some of the responses have actually been, because people will send them to me, like, wow, that was a different response to you than it was to this guy,
right?
And even, you know what I mean? So that's interesting.
Well, that means that legislator has a good aid.
They have good, yeah,
and it's given them good direction.
Yep. And it does vary. Obviously a lot of it has to do with their staff. I had one in Colorado that she CC'd her staff. She said, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this because I didn't realize how complex this issue was. And she wanted to talk about the North American model of wildlife. And that's
badass.
That's
great.
A relationship right there.
Yeah.
And so, and there's a balance there. There's some, some of these, like, say if we're sending emails to a commission, they might have a smaller staff. They're getting inundated with emails, and it's like, holy cow. And they're kind of by law supposed to read them all and go through them all.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to be a pain in the ass, but I want to make sure that if hunters want their voices heard, we want to make sure their voices are heard. So we can kind of customize that. I could, for some of the commissions, if I feel like I trust them. California is a great example. Their staff, they've impressed me greatly lately. They were getting a lot of emails. I could tell they were a little annoyed. So I'm like, all right, well, what hunters still want to send their emails? How do we do this? Can I send it to you? Could I send it to you in bulk? Could I send you a list of, hey, this is what everyone's writing? And then can I just attach a bunch of names to it and send it to you in bulk? But don't get me wrong, it's not, these are people who want to send these emails, who want to get involved. So it's not, don't look at it as coming from me. Don't look at it as coming from Howl for Wildlife. But you need to, if we do it this way, I want it to be recognized, So when you put out in a report, this is how many comments or emails we received on this issue, those all need to be counted, So I guess my point there is I'm not trying to be a pain in the ass, but at the same time, if I need to be, I will be.
Yeah.
And I'll make it as easy as possible for people to reach anybody. And I mean, and we've done it in Canada as well. And So sort of along the same um, thread is we've set up the same ease to make phone calls. So, and making a phone call is really powerful. I mean, you're actually speaking with somebody, on the phone where you don't know what they're going to say back to you, and so you need to be ready for that. But we have the same kind of process where you push a button and a phone call from our system, a phone number from our system will call your phone and basically lead you through prompts. It'll say, look at your screen, and here's some talking points on this issue. And when you're ready, push star or something like that, and it connects you with the first decision maker. And it'll connect you with 5 at a time. So if there's a lot more, then you can keep on going down the line if you want to. But as soon as you push star, it's like ring, 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 and a number that's local to wherever this issue is. So if it's a Oklahoma issue, an Oklahoma number will call that decision maker, and you're up, and here's your talking points. So you speak with them and
Genius.
Thank you very much, and then you can push the button and it goes to the next decision maker. So, and so on and so forth. So we've tried to make that a bit more seamless and give you something to say if you didn't know. But then what's happening is the more and more people do this, because a lot of these issues are repetitive, a lot of it's predator management, right? So now you've already done 3 of these actions, and you've read these emails, and it's passed through the House, and now it's at a committee, and then it's at a Senate, and then it's at another committee. These are all new decision makers. So when that happens, it's a new action. So now you have new people to contact. So now you've gone through this, and now you're like, well, you know what? I kind of know about this now. And okay, I get it. I can write my own personal, I can put my own hunting experience into this, or my own cultural experience into this, or whatever it is that's your story. And now you're emotionally attached to this, and you know how easy it is to reach these people, and you can start writing and saying your own things. You don't need us anymore.
Right.
Like to write things for you. Exactly.
Which is great.
Yeah. It's education.
Yeah. I just got off of a spring bear hunt in Hell's Canyon, and we're down there for a week. We had 5 tags in camp, and we filled all the tags. So everybody got a bear. And then I was fishing one afternoon, and a guy that recognized my boat pulled up, and I'd been watching a bear on the Idaho side, and they had an Idaho tag. So went and helped him get that bear. So we pulled 6 bears out of the canyon on that trip. What's interesting is this was maybe a week after we got our elk numbers for the area, and we have half as many elk as we did 2 years ago. So we can blame a lot of things, right? And it tends to be at the state level to blame anything but a predator. And it's not only predators. It's never one thing. It's always complicated, but predators are part of the issue. Pulling 6 bears out of the canyon is going to make a big difference on the calf crop for this year. It's
amazing, by the way. When was this trip? Recent?
Last week.
And you pulled that sounds like an adventure. Anyway.
It was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also spent 3 days out hiking, and it's just some of the toughest country out there. And my stupid self forgot to bring a lighter, so I had no fire, no ability to make food, or to purify water. So it turned into a little bit of a vision quest for me, and I got to think about stuff. I got to think about bear hunting a lot, and think about the place that I was in, and the people that have lived there, and the people that will come there in the future, and how just the whole system works. And bear hunting, and I think this is true of many, many predators, it means something to everybody. I don't know if you could find a human in the world who is aware of bears and aware of hunting that doesn't have some type of a feeling about it. I think there's a lot of people that don't have any feelings about fishing. They don't have any feelings about shooting a pheasant. There's a lot of people that don't have feelings about shooting deer. But bear hunting means something to everybody. And that's incredible.
Well, it's got to be, is that anthropomorphism? Is that just like Is that because there's cuddly bears, and even as growing up or something, maybe you had a stuffed animal and that probably was a bear? Winnie the Pooh. Is that why? Because we relate to them like that as more of
I don't know.
a character that.
But even before that, in indigenous cultures, bears
Mm,
were a spiritual animal.
you're right.
Um, and even if you go to different continents, people have feelings about bears. Those
So they're a
feel
special
Yeah,
creature.
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And those feelings can really prevent us from thinking clearly about a subject on both sides. And that's why it's so important for as many people who care to get their voice out there and let somebody know why they care. And it's a powerful thing to give people a voice who haven't had one in the past, because it means something to them, and they just might not have the tools to be able to say what it means. And I commend you very much for creating this, because it's a genius, and it's helpful, and it's effective.
Well, I appreciate that. It's based on my involvement in previous bills and just seeing gaps, in the process and me trying to figure it out. Like, come on, this is 2000. I feel like we're living in the late 90s. Like, we're trying to reach these people the way that we would in the late 90s and before. There's a lot of things out there we can do to make this
Yeah.
way simpler. And the funny thing about it to me is that I was the person to do it. That's what's really crazy to me, because I'm not. I mean, I love technology, I love computers and whatever, but I'm not a developer. I'm not a code writer. I'll dabble in it, but mostly it's I'll find somebody so they can bring my idea to life and then show me how to do it, because I want to know how to do everything, and then I'll go from there. But it is what it is. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that nobody has done this before. But there that's wrong. People have done this before. It's I don't know to exactly to what success, but I've seen this in um, ultra progressive and anti-hunting, ultra progressive campaign political campaigns. That's where I learned a lot of how to set this up, and anti-hunting orgs. So they use these same techniques, right? I kept hearing hunters never show up to commission meetings. Okay, well, maybe why? How come they didn't show up to commission meetings? What was it? Oh, because we have jobs, and all those anti-hunters, they don't have jobs. I doubt that. You know, I don't think that's what it is. You're probably scared to show up
Yeah.
because you don't know the process, and it's nerve wracking. It is for me. I've never done this before, but I've surrounded myself with a small group of people who, I like to surround myself with smart people.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things I'm trying to do with Howl for Wildlife is just where's all the smart people out there who can write really well, who can provide content, who can um, enunciate these ideas, and then who understand the process with a commission or how it works. So then when when I come to you and say, hey, how do we get, because now I'd have to do a count, but I know it's well over 600 since we started between Washington, Arizona, and California. I guess there's Colorado too. I haven't counted that, but we've had over 600 hunters be involved in commission meetings now since then.
That's huge.
So what I mean is speaking
Yeah.
to the various commissions.
Yeah.
So back to my point, before, I heard this a lot when we lost hound hunting in California. I think that was in 2012. We lost it in 2013, but the decision was made in 2012. Everyone said, all the orgs said and everything, hunters didn't show up. We'd be at the meetings and there'd be X number of anti-hunters and there'd be like three hunters. Like, okay, if you think that makes a difference, Like if this is a mob a mob rule thing, which it does make a difference. It's not. I would hope decisions aren't made off of how many people show up, but it does sway the conversation a bit. I think it gives respect to the conversation, at least to one side or the other. So all right, well, let's make it easy. What is it that we think hunters, how come they're not showing up? Probably because they don't know what to say, they don't know the process, and maybe they feel like they'll be the only person that shows up. Well, let's fix that. And we're doing a really good job with that right now.
Yeah.
And that's only building, and more people are getting involved, like in wildlife resource committees, which is where kind of the sort of the gloves off, roll your sleeves back, ideas get put out to commissions, and different proposals that hunters can have. It's the same thing that the Humane Society submits petitions. They want to do this, they want to do this, they want to do that. And I'm sitting here going, well, wait a second, why can't we propose stuff? Why can't we have them on their heels?
Sure.
Why can't we have them spending resources to fight what a bunch of hunters and hunting orgs have put together, that what they want in a state?
And here's a good example of that. A lot of states have what's called a right to hunt, and it's in their state's their state constitution. And that guarantees that the residents of that state have a legal right to hunt. There's a lot of states that don't.
We're one of them.
Yeah.
We have a right to fish here.
Yeah, which is great. That's a lovely thing. But that is an example of something that we can be working on, driving towards. That somebody would have to fight against us if they didn't want that to exist. And if they didn't want that to exist, they'd have to come up with some really compelling reasons. And I don't feel good about hunting isn't compelling enough. And what you're talking about with the weight of demographic, one way or another, who shows up to commission meetings, there's a lot that goes into that. In Oregon, commission meetings allow you to speak for 90 seconds, 2 minutes, something like that.
Depends on how many people show up generally.
Yeah. There's usually only one meeting a year that is within an 8-hour drive of where I live. So driving 16 hours to speak for 90 seconds is a burden. That's a burden on me. So I need a better way to communicate, because that's not realistic. I can't do that. I certainly can't do it every month. So people end up, coming up with excuses to not do that, and then relying on the same people, whether you have a lobbyist for your hunters association or through Oregon Outdoor Council or something like that. Those commissioners want to see new faces, and they want to hear new voices. If they're hearing from the same person time and time again, it becomes a dial tone. They're like, yeah, we know where you stand on this. Thanks. You just burned 90 seconds of my life that I'll never get back. Mm-hmm. So it's incredibly important for people to attend these things, but it's also not feasible. And that's why other forms of communication are so important, because rural voices need to be heard. And there's a big divide in these Western states between how many people hunt in rural places versus urban places. And we just have to be honest about that.
Well, and Zoom has been, most of all those commissions that I've spoke about, Washington, California, Arizona, and Colorado, they've all included Zoom as a method of speaking to the commission. So you can be there in person. Well, up until recently, you couldn't be there in person.
I didn't even know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So they have virtual speaking. You get your 60 seconds, 90 seconds, whatever. And that's been huge. And now that things are in person, it's a hybrid version. So they go to whoever is there gets to speak first in person, and then they go to Zoom.
Nice.
And I mean, I think it's a little more powerful if you can be there.
Of course.
But it's very powerful if you can give any type of public testimony. And again, it's getting you, this works for both sides, getting you emotionally invested in the process. And what's happening, especially with this Humane Society thing in well, they're everywhere, but in California, hunters are really picking apart that petition. They're learning more about the petition that they submitted. They're taking speeches from other states and other commissions that the Humane Society, that their representatives say, and kind of they're contradicting each other. We're just like we're picking the whole thing apart and really making this a, number one, when they present science, that has been, for the most part, completely shut down by actual science. Right. Now, emotions come into play, and some commissions recognize social science as being maybe even just as powerful.
Yeah.
Which is sorry, my dog is jumping on me here.
Oh, you should never have to apologize for a dog jumping on you.
Which is, I think, unfortunate when you have Washington State's a perfect example. When you have your own state's wildlife biologists give a presentation, this is their job, to collect this data, and they give a presentation on the state of bear in Washington, population numbers. They're basically answering everything that has been asked, and then you might have commission members that say, "Well, we believe in a different form of science," which it's just kind of a bit fraudulent, if you ask me. I'm just like, hold on, you're on a wildlife, your state's wildlife commission, so now you've made it where this is a discussion on, is hunting right or wrong? Is hunting legal or not? Can people come to the commission to discuss not the already legal aspects of hunting that exist in your state, and discuss that from that base? It's now, is hunting right or wrong? Like, that's what these commissions have become. That's kind of what happened in Washington State with the majority of the commissioners. And that was really unfortunate. We don't really have to get into that. But in California, they really stuck to the science, and they explicitly said to the Humane Society, this is not the place to come, because your end goal is you just want to end hunting. They asked them that. They said, okay, what if we show you the science? What if you believed unequivocally that there's 50,000 bear in California, which now we know there just might be. They were saying there's 9 to 15,000, which indicated a decline because of climate change and wildfires. So one of the commissioners asked, what if the Humane Society realizes there's 50,000 bear? Will you leave this alone? Because you based your petition on science. And the answer was, no, we're never going to support bear hunting. So it's not about the science.
Because bear hunting means something to everyone.
It does.
Yeah.
Yep. And they say they'll never get involved in any of the ungulate issues at all. Deer hunting, elk hunting, whatever. They're against hunting, but they're not going to get involved in it. I don't believe that. I mean, I think they just want to get to predator hunting first, and then get through predator hunting first, and then what would be the logical next step for them? I mean, they got to continue to make money. They got to have something to fight for, and they are just a big business. Honestly, that's really what it is.
Well, and because so many people subscribe to the ecosystem balance theory, if there's no more predator hunting allowed, if you can't shoot anything with a canine tooth, then they could come out and pitch, hey, we don't need to hunt ungulates anymore because the predators are going to do that. And that's how we'll achieve balance in the ecosystem, which is flawed. It's so incredibly flawed because we have an impact on our ecosystem as humans, and we've restricted migration corridors. We've been impacting animals in North America for at least 14,000 years through extinction level events. As Homo sapiens, as modern humans, we've been doing that. So there's nothing new about that. It's a constantly changing thing. But I could definitely see the Humane Society of the US pitching it in those terms if they were able to get rid of bear hunting, bobcat hunting, cougar hunting, coyote hunting, whatever it is. I met somebody who was advocating for banning coyote hunting competitions in Oregon from HSUS. And I was really happy to sit down and talk with that person and understand their perspective, and then kind of talk about my perspective as well after I'd heard them. They wouldn't even look at me, wouldn't even shake my hand. Like they're uninterested. And I don't think that that's the way to go about it. I think that me and that person would probably agree on 95% of everything. So if we can start with that, like let's figure out what that 5% is like, and let's talk about it a little bit, because there's probably something that we can both learn from each other. And we definitely have to keep an open mind about that stuff as hunters, as we're advocating for these issues. You know, people want to be heard. And while that's what you are enabling with Howl for hunters, you're enabling hunters to be heard. We need to work on our listening skills as well, so we can understand what the adversarial point is, as much as anything. But I think it also just helps build relationships if people can ensure that they're both speaking and being listened to.
I think we can certainly build relationships. I know, but of course we can. And you're right. I think most people probably agree on 95% of everything, but it's that darn 5%, whatever the issue
sticky.
is. That's just the major separation in human beings these days, basically.
And there's plenty of real estate there within that margin to be deal breakers.
Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah. One thing there's gotta be, okay. So trophy hunting, the way that trophy hunting is defined. So the Humane Society has their definition, and there was a lady who she got upset in the meeting. I think she left because the commission, specifically because so many hunters were addressing the trophy hunting issue and how they were defining it. And so many hunters were saying, listen, I eat bear meat. This is what we do with our bear meat. This is what we do with the hide. This is what we do with the oil from the fat, and so on and so forth. So the commission specifically, this was interesting, it specifically asked us to stand back up because they had some additional questions about trophy hunting, which, number one, it's illegal because there's wanton waste laws in California. So, and in most states, I don't know if it's all states, but in most states there is. Anyway, so we got a chance to kind of reply to the commission about that and get some clarity there, because so much of the Humane Society's petition was, we're just doing it for the pictures and we're just doing it for the head, which, all right, maybe I can appreciate somebody that doesn't know saying that. However, once we tell you this, and this, how that's not true, and we show you how that's not true, and we present to you how that's not true, and we also show you how it's also illegal to do what it is that you're stating, there's got to be some on that side that say, wow, I didn't know you could actually eat bear. I know that's a fact because there's not generally big game hunters, but maybe some. There's hunters. There's people who support hunting who have no idea that you could eat bear still.
Yeah.
So of course, if there's some on our side that think that way, well, definitely on their side, they've just been told one thing and that's it. And that, I think that's how it works. I think the majority of Americans probably think that PETA is a fringe organization. However, PETA has done a really fantastic job at marketing their message to the mainstream. So to a lot of people, to the 80% swing vote out there who are just non-hunting public neutral, they don't feel any way about anything. They've only been shown probably one or two things about hunting, and it's probably been negative, and they're like, whatever. Maybe they care, maybe they don't care, but they've been shown what PETA's shown them,
Right.
And you throw up a couple pictures and here's an infographic and there's hunting for you. What drives me crazy is, why don't we have an organization that can throw up a couple pictures and put some awesome stuff on there, and how much money comes from, tag sales or whatnot and what that goes to, or all the meat, like the metric ton of meat that's provided through people hunting wild game, and actually how many plates on dinner tables that's providing. There's just great info. I mean, we have science, we have data, we have, all of that. Why aren't we trying to throw that into the mix to the non-hunting public to get a few of them to either say, I've never seen that perspective before. Where do I find out more about that? Wow, you can eat bear meat? I didn't know that. Wow, hunters are maybe you can answer this. This is one thing I've been told recently, is that if hunting stopped, so if we weren't all eating wild game, the however many of us eat wild game,
Mm-hmm.
would the beef industry be able to handle that change?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I've been hearing that a lot. I'm like, really? Is it that much? And maybe I mean, I've gone for years where, I mean, I don't raise my own chickens. I did, or my family did in Michigan, but here in California, I've gone for years. I have no idea the last time I bought red meat.
Yeah.
Because I have pork. I kill a lot of pigs, and I kill a lot of deer or elk or whatever, bear. So yeah, I eat a lot of wild game. And I imagine there's plenty of other people who do too. What effect would that have if we took that away? And I've been seeing some stats lately on, is that really true that the cattle industry, whatever, wouldn't be able to handle that change? I don't know.
Right now, we already can't handle the amount of beef consumed in the country, even though that amount is going down. But the inventory, the national herd, if you will, is incredibly low right now. It's incredibly low, and I don't have hard numbers on it, although I did just talk about this a couple of weeks ago. But without foreign beef, we wouldn't be able to meet the beef needs of Americans right now. We are eating about 30 pounds of beef less per person per year than we did in the 1970s. And there seems to be a direct correlation between health and beauty and beef consumption. And the more beef a country consumes, the more of those things they have. And if you, I won't even give you the answer, but if you figure out which country in the world consumes the most beef, just take a look at the people, and you can draw your own conclusions from that. But that's kind of a sidebar subject.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
you understand what I'm saying?
I totally understand. And
why don't we dip into that pool?
Totally. But we also don't have enough wildlife to feed everybody.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I'm definitely not suggesting that. I don't even want new hunters. I don't want any more hunters. I don't. I just want more people to support hunting.
Yeah.
I don't want new hunters.
Yeah. Or understand that maybe that they don't have enough information to have the strength of the opinion that they have. And I don't know if that's just something that comes with like comfort with yourself or maturity, or maybe getting outside of an echo chamber. But I posted something the other day about these turkeys and deer, white-tailed deer in Hell's Canyon. And they're both invasive species. They're not native. And they're taking up the niche of native mule deer that are absolutely heading towards extirpation, coming soon. And people were all kind of fuzzed up about calling something an invasive species that clearly was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's fascinating how feelings can so quickly get in the way.
Because it's a deer, man. I mean, it's just it is what it is. People get emotional about a variety of subjects. I mean, I can't explain to you why I used to feel, I've been hunting all my life, but I'd never had any desire to kill coyotes, and I never had any desire to kill bear until I just had different experiences while hunting. I was charged by a black bear while I was blacktail hunting, and I thought I could hear something walking. I had just seen a blacktail buck, and I could hear something walking through the leaves, and it was just over the top of this hill. I'm like, oh, here comes this buck. I'm getting ready. I think I'm like behind a big giant redwood stump or something. And and I'm looking and I'm like, what is that? Yeah, I'm just waiting for this buck that I had just seen. And here comes the sow. She's maybe 25 yards away. I had my GoPro on too. And then two cubs run out right past me. I mean, ran towards me. They didn't know I was there. And I kind of just like jump back. Well, she sees me and takes off after like one of the cubs sort of just ran right past me. And one of the cubs climbs the tree right next to me. And so I'm backing out. Behind me was a big drop off or something. So I'm trying to back out into this open field. And I think she's trying to figure out where this other cub went, the one that climbed the tree. And then she just starts bluff charging me. Oh, I mean, and I'm walking backwards, just yelling at this thing. And I just have my bow and arrow. And I finally get out to the open field. She comes to the edge and she's just, and running and stopping, running and stopping. I've never been so jacked up in my life. I mean, just, and that entire night, when I got back to my tent, I couldn't sleep. It was just every little thing I heard. It wasn't like I was consciously like, oh man, she's going to come after me. I'm like, that's stupid. I mean, she's not coming after me. I was just, I don't know if I've ever been that scared. I don't know if I've ever been in a position like that where I might get mauled to death by a bear. I might get in a fight with a bear and that bear is probably going to win. I'm going to get hurt at the very, you know what I mean? But you have a wild animal like that. I was just, skyrocketed with adrenaline. So it got me more interested in bear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what it is. I want to start hunting bear. Not like not because I'm like, I want to get back at the bear.
Sure.
I just want to learn more about bear. And what better way to learn about bear than to start hunting bear? Right.
Yeah.
And then with coyote, I think it was just seeing too many coyotes sometime.
Yeah.
Seeing some effects, seeing a bunch of dead turkey and nesting areas and things like different places I hunted. I'm like, all right. Cause I mean, hey, I look at a coyote and I'm like, it kind of looks like my dog. Like, I don't know. What do I want to kill a coyote for? But I've changed the way I've thought. It used to just kill me if I lost an animal. If I shot an animal and I couldn't find it, I would take it almost too far. I'd take it almost personally. And then I came to a point where I'm like, I'm going to do everything I can to find the animal. But if I don't, this is pretty natural for that animal, honestly. Like something's always trying to kill a deer, and sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they get a big scratch on their side from if they escaped a mountain lion or whatever, or they get hung up on barbed wire fences or diseases, you name it. Something's happening to them. And if I can't find this animal, well, something else is definitely going to, if that animal ends up dying, something else is going to eat that animal. And that's just the way it works. I just didn't get to eat it.
And from 1,000 feet in the air, that's just biomass in the carbon cycle, just like us. Yep. And if you think that indigenous people around the world got every animal that they ever flung a spear or an arrow or a rock at, you are out of your mind.
Yeah.
This has always been part of the game. It has always been part of how we live. And it's how part of these scavengers live. It's part of the process. And yeah, losing an animal is a terrible thing. It sucks. And it hurts. It hurts you emotionally. And for some people, they quit hunting or they'll never hunt with that particular weapon again. But it is something that happens. It's not always just a clean shot and a quick kill. So yeah, it is something that I think we need to talk more about. We shouldn't take it lightly, but we should understand that this is something that can and does occur.
Yeah, 100%. I love, I don't know if it's just as you get more experience or as you get older and I just start talking to different people and different perspectives and different angles. I don't know, this might sound kind of crazy, but back to the bear thing. I realize bear are certainly special, and they always have been, and they have been to Native Americans and different indigenous people. They're like a more of a a spirit animal kind of a thing. But I look at animals and I question, like, well, why do I think there's a difference between this animal and this animal?
Yeah.
And even further, if it's a living being, why do I think there's a difference between an insect and an animal? I mean, it, the reasons why is because I think we put humanity on things, and we have certain things we can relate to,
Yeah.
because of our own humanity. But I think you either realize, um, to me, what I think the natural world is, and you realize that humans are a part of that, or you don't. And I think it's if you have a view of the world where humans sort of came here as visitors to this animal planet, and they were here first, kind of a thing, and we're kind of invaders or whatnot, aliens, visiting this, and then now we're going to try and take over all that. Well, I think that's kind of nonsense. I mean, there's two sides. Either for people who believe in God, the God of the Bible or of the Quran, or whatever, I'm pretty sure hunting is a part of that. So, you would believe that hunting is okay, right? But if you believe in, just to talk in generalizations, if you believe in, evolution, where humans are an animal, so then where's the intellectual discussion here? Like, what are we? It's okay for a wolf to go hunt down and kill this animal, but me as an animal, I can't go hunt down and kill this animal. Like, why not? Why can't I? What's the big difference there?
Yeah.
Because unless everybody's, I don't even know what religion it would be or whatever, but I mean, who really thinks we're an alien that came from a different place, and we're just, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? I just don't understand the argument sometimes, and I like this. It helps me to break things down to really simple forms like that, to just tell myself, all right, we got to cut out all the nonsense here. Let's start with something that makes people like think, like, God, why is it that I think this way?
Yeah.
Do I believe I'm an animal? Do I believe I came from an animal? Or do I believe in sort of an inalienable right or whatnot from God, or however you take that? I think it's a good debate. It's a good question to have. It's a good thing to talk about.
People do put different values on different species based on how valuable they are to them, and whether that value is tangible or economic or emotional. The mountain whitefish is a really good example of that, right? So that's a fish that is common throughout trout streams all over the West, and they're salmonid, meaning that they're in the same group as trout, salmon, and steelhead, same family. I shouldn't say group. And yeah, a lot of times it's the biggest fish you catch in the day. They're happy to eat a fly. They fight like hell, but they've got this little mouth, and it kind of points a little bit down. So people think that they're a sucker, and then they start to make up lies about them. They say, they don't taste good. They're really bony. Well, they have an identical bone structure to that trout that you're so fancy about. And there are only fish that's never been through a hatchery program. Like, they're a legit native species that hasn't been tampered with. They don't tolerate pollution. So if you find them, you're in a nice, clean waterway. The Rocky Mountain whitefish is an incredible species, and they're great table fare. But people have all kinds of feelings about them, and it leads them to thinking and believing the wrong thing, when just a scrap of research or even intuition would lead them closer to the truth. And I'm guilty of that too. I'll place a value on a mule deer over a whitetail deer in this area, where mule deer are native and whitetail are not. Is that appropriate? Hard to say. Maybe mule deer's time is just up and they're on their way out, and conditions have changed, and we shouldn't be working so hard to keep them out of the grave. Or maybe we say, yeah, this is the hill I want to die on, and I'm gonna fight for mule deer for the rest of my life. But how we value these things is really important. Anthropomorphizing is a problem. We shouldn't treat animals like they're people, and give them human emotions and characteristics. That's That's a really, really big issue. And like you talked about, I think a lot of people, when they see a coyote or a wolf, they see their dog, or they see a mountain lion or a bobcat and they see their cat. It's nuts to think that a bear in the wild is the same as a teddy bear in a crib. It's nuts to think that your, Siberian husky is the same thing as a wolf. They're really, really different. By not acknowledging those differences, you're starting off in the wrong place to think about the complexities of these ecosystems and environments, and how the species interact in them, and what our role is. So, not asking everybody to be a wildlife biologist, but I am asking them to think it through a little bit before they say what they're thinking.
Yeah. So, back more to Howl and what it is that we're doing. We have some biologists now who are providing content, and also helping to write actions.
That's great.
And helping to write the emails as well, but written in a way that's not necessarily from a biologist. It's just like, hey, you guys understand all this, but you need to package this. So first of all, we want the hunters to understand. I had a great conversation about trapping yesterday. I'm like, you know what? I've never trapped a day in my life. I don't know anything about it.
You ever trapped a mouse?
I have trapped a mouse here.
Okay. So this is something worth talking about.
Yeah.
People have all kinds of feelings about trapping coyotes or beavers or whatever.
Any trapping. Yeah.
But mouse trapping, everybody can get on board with mouse trapping.
Yeah.
Or at least enough people that, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yep.
Because mice affect everybody. So they're like, yeah, fine. Hell with that mouse. Can you imagine if you removed mice from the ecosystem? Everything else would crash. We got to have mice. They're really, really important.
Yeah.
But we don't feel bad about trapping them.
Right. No, we don't.
Because they get in your Frosted Flakes.
Yeah. Right. So exactly. So hunters need to be able to, what I want to do is, if somebody came up to you on the street and they asked you about bear hunting or trapping or coyote hunting, whatever, be able to defend that on the street with something logical.
Yeah.
That makes sense to say. Not that person has to agree with it, but go beyond, well, this is just what I've always done. And that's what it is for me. I thought there was a time period in my life where I didn't know people didn't, I didn't know that that there was people who didn't hunt.
Right.
Right. So obviously when I was a kid, so I want to be able to go beyond, well, I just hunt and this is what I've done. And I don't really think about why I do it or why this is necessary or this or that. So the conversation I had yesterday was, can we write these up in a way where A, the hunter is getting educated, but B, because we really want non-hunters to start getting involved, and we have a few of them now, where they can come and learn about it as well. And not that they have to become a hunter, but I get this now. I get why this is necessary. And with trapping, like, what does that do to nesting birds? How does that affect nesting birds and diseases and all these things? Stuff that if I'm not doing it, if I'm not, interested in it, I'm not going to know anything about it.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's time for the world of hunting, all the people that are in it, we need to streamline our voice a little bit and for once kind of be on the same side when it comes to certain issues. We can argue around the campfire about this or that, or this type of hunting versus this type of hunting, but there is a very well organized attack on hunting, and they've got quite a bit of money, and they always have us on our heels in all these different states. And it's been going on for a long time. And if we don't come together, educate ourselves, work together, put our money where our mouths are, we might just be talking about how we used to hunt in the future. And if they do, back to your point about predator, if let's just say all predator hunting was banned, well, what effect is that going to have on the ungulate populations? And would we as hunters get to the point where we say, I don't know how long this would take, but would we get to the point where we say, the ungulate populations can't can't support us hunting them anymore because there's 90,000 mountain lions out there and whatever else. And
we're already there in Oregon. There's a huge number of people in Oregon who refuse to hunt mule deer anymore because the state is putting out more tags in each unit than there are bucks in each unit.
I just read that, like 2.5 tags per buck or deer. It was something like that. I just read that. Yeah,
it's nuts. It's absolute bonkers. And there's a lot of guys. And I started a group here years ago for this specific problem that just decided, no, we're not going to hunt muleys anymore. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that are willing to drink the last sip of the milkshake. But there's a lot of people that look at it and go, no, I'm not going to continue contributing to that problem. That doesn't necessarily mean that through their passivity that they're working on the solution. They're just no longer being part of the problem. So for those people, I would highly encourage them, and for everybody else, to go check out Howl for Wildlife. Where can they find you?
The website's howlforwildlife.org. We also have howl.org because a lot of people have just been saying howl. So we got that URL as well.
Strong work.
Instagram is howl_org. And basically everything that you see on Facebook, and I guess there's Twitter too, which is different now. That's just everything starts with Instagram and it just goes out to Facebook or Twitter. So Instagram is where we're doing the most work for sure. And
are you howling for fish and birds as well?
Yes. 100%. Yeah. So
if you're into outdoor recreation, you need to check this out.
If you are into outdoor, yeah, absolutely. And when we have more staff, I can just only tackle so many issues. Totally. So I've been kind of trying to pick the hot button issues, I guess. And ones where I feel like we can actually do something about it. There has to be decision makers. There's a lot of kind of alarms going off about stuff, but it's just, or almost like a rumor or something. It's like, well, wait, nobody's voting on this. There's nothing that can be done. I mean, we can go chase ghosts around, but a lot of these issues, people email me all day long, like, hey, I saw this on this guy's website or this company's website. How come you guys aren't involved? Because there's nothing to be done. It's just, some anna hunting org said this is what we want to do. There's no bill. There's no, there's nothing. Yeah. So it's politics, I guess. So,
well, man, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your time. Yeah, I sincerely appreciate what you're doing. And
thank you.
Yeah, I encourage people to, at a minimum, go to howlforwildlife.org and see if this is your kind of thing.
It's free.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
Thanks.
Well,
man.
Thanks again. And yeah, folks, there's links to all this stuff in the podcast description. And really encourage you to do it. But Charles, thank you so much for your time. And I'll catch you next time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I found this old ad, and there's like dudes dressed up like construction workers, and a guy's got a jackhammer, and there's a crane, and they're moving all these big steel beams and stuff.
Aladdin Stanley Thermos. Stanley, the tough, all steel thermos bottle that's completely dependable.
They're showing this thermos like falling off this building and hitting all this other construction stuff.
And built to take a bounding year after year. Get the top one.
Well, it lands in a wheelbarrow. The guy grabs it out of the wheelbarrow. Now he's going to pour himself a cup of coffee. I love these cheesy old ads. And most of the time, like, they're lying to us, right? That's most of what marketing used to be, was just like telling a lie, or at least telling a version of a lie that made you think that you needed this thing. But I'll tell you what, when it's cold out like it is right now, the only way to keep liquid and not freezing in your pack is by putting it in something that's insulated. So packing a thermos in the wintertime is really smart, whether it's for a hot beverage like coffee or if you just want to bring some water with you, which is a really important thing if you're going to be out adventuring around in this snow that we've got all over the country. And I think you should be, because it's a great time of year to get out and about. You know, this is both a comfort and a safety thing. If you want to get something from Stanley, which I encourage you to do, you can use the discount code 6RANCH. That's the number 6 in the word ranch, and that'll get you 25% off of just about anything on their website. I encourage you to do that. They're great supporters of the show and great supporters of this audience, and I love you guys. So stay warm out there, have a nice warm drink, and make sure you're drinking it out of a Stanley product. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at 6Ranch Podcast or me at 6Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the 6Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the 6Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.